Hi, I'm Marna, and this is the Dolls Rescue Channel. Once a month we do I used to call it beginner crafters, but now you're just crafters, and I think that's really fun. Today we are going to make a skirt for the curvy Barbie. In your packet you will have a curvy Barbie, a piece of blue fabric, and a pattern that's too small. But here's what we're going to do. Okay, in your packet, you're going to have a curvy Barbie, a Care Bear top, a pattern that will not fit curvy Barbie, and a piece of fabric to make a skirt out of. And what we're going to do today is I'm going to show you how to take this pattern to make it fit this size doll. And I do it different than most people do, and I will give you the option of measuring, but that's not how I do it. I'm going to show you a quick and simple way. This pattern, for those of you that do not get the packets, I found on a channel on YouTube called NDLY Handmade. Okay, so here is your pattern. Take your doll. Now, if you did not get a doll in your packet, like the note said that I sent, that's because I haven't heard from you and I have no idea if you're still doing the crafts or not. And I need to know that, or I'll just not send you the crafts at all. I'll just assume you're doing other things in your life. This is the back of the pattern. This on the Kirby Barbies is where it really matters because she has a big rump and big hips. So what you're going to do is notice that this is way small for your curvy Barbie, and you also want that longer. So this is how I do it. You can measure your pattern and then measure your doll and then make your pattern that much larger by just drawing around the pattern on the piece before you even cut it. What I did was I cut the pattern. I'm holding it up to her. I see that this barely covers her cheeks. Knot alone comes around so that it is half the skirt plus your seam allowance. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these, and I can see that I need to go quite a bit bigger. So what I do, this is just how I do it, is I lay, this will be cut, your front piece is cut on the fold of your fabric. In other words, you fold your fabric over, you cut it like this so that when it opens up, you have the full front. And I'm going to hold that up to her. I see I need to go quite a bit bigger and quite a bit longer. So what I do, actually I do this with scissors, but I'm going to show you with a pen. I will need to go quite a bit bigger, quite a bit longer, but I use this as my guide. And then I bring this out and finish it. And then I hold this up to my doll. And see her, this will be the middle of her front. Now, with my seam allowance, that's going to be too large. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and I'm just taking off a little bit of this from the sides. Notice how I bring that in for her hips. Now I will have to recheck the hips more than anything. And I want that to hit her about here. So I want to pull her down a little bit, and we're going to make our own bias tape for the waist. So there won't be a seam allowance at the skirt folding down from the top, okay? So that's about where I want that. Now, as far as length, that is all the way to her knee, which is way longer than I like skirts, but this will have a seam allowance. You will turn that up twice, which is about, you're going to have at least this much seam allowance, at least, probably a little more. So for me, that works out. So I'll cut, this will be my front on Curvy Barbie. And then I will do the same thing for the back. Okay, so here is what you have after you cut out your pattern, your front, your two backs. What you do to cut out your backs is not put this on the curve, and then your bias for the waistline. And we will take that more down to size when we measure out our waist and how we want it to fit on our Curvy Barbie. When you finish your pattern, mark on it what it is, for who, and I always remind myself to cut on the fold. And from here, what we will do is pin right sides together, the pretty sides together. Each side, pin it down, and you will take in both sides of your skirt. Now that looks like it's really big, but this girl has really big thighs. Once you get your seams on each side, that's probably going to fit really well. It's always better to cut your fabric a little bit bigger than you think. And this is what happened. When I tried it on her, it was a little too big. So what I did was, in a big stitch, as large as I could find on my machine, or that I have, I held it up to my doll. I saw about how much more I needed to take it in, and I took a big stitch. Well, that was all fine and good, and it fit her perfect, except in the back at her waist, I needed that fold over to finish the edge for the velcro. Right here is where that's going to, actually it'll go to her butt, because that's what you have to get up over, is this great big wide butt. So what I did, I had this in too far. I took I took a pin is what I actually did, and I took it about down to here, and I widened that waist so that it would have the fold over. What I'll do next is trim my two sides, and then we're going to bring this piece over to the iron. And first we're going to flatten it, then we are going to fold it in half, long ways obviously. We're going to fold that down all the way across, and then we're going to fold each of these two edges to that fold line. Each side, you should probably do one at a time. Push that up to the fold line and tuck it under and iron all the way across. And then, might take 4 hands, but if you do it slow, you'll get it. Just like that. Iron it down all the way across, little by little. And then obviously we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Oops, that needs to go down just a little further. And then we will do the same thing on this side. We will tuck this down and iron that all the way across. Okay, I took this over to the sewing machine. I double folded like this my fabric over, and I put my hem in. And now I'm going to take this piece of bias that we made, and I'm going to, let's do it this way, because I know this skirt is going to fit right. I've already held it around my doll, and make sure that I have my fold over for my velcro. Let me get my finger out of it. I've got my fold over for my velcro, and I know that I'm not going to put a very big seam in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start my bias piece. You call it bias tape when you buy it, and I'm going to leave that to the edge and take this all the way over. Now, if you are a beginner, I recommend a zigzag stitch, and the reason is, if you don't have, let me show you, I always show my mistakes and how I fixed them. I don't do craft magic like some channels do. Some channels, they're sewing along and all of a sudden you notice that the fabric's a different color because they've edited and started over. I don't do that. I show you the mistakes that we make. All right, so if you do a zigzag and you happen to take this up just a little too tall and you miss this fabric, your zigzag will still catch it. But if you're more experienced or you go really slow, you can put just put your stitch in. Now, stitch from the front of your skirt. Take your time, make sure this is open. And what I'm saying open is, if you'll notice, I opened that seam and sewed it flat. And the reason you do that doesn't really matter, but it will lay nicer in the end. So as you're going along, you want this on the front. Why the front? Because that you can watch your seam and you know where it's going and it'll look nicer in the front. If you're using bias tape from the package, one side's longer than the other, and if you get the shorter piece on the front and you're measuring from the back, often you miss that stitch. So then you end up with two seams on the front. Okay, so we've got this sewn down. Here's your front. What we're going to do at this point is nip this straight up. We're going to take this over back to the sewing machine. Put a small seam. I'm not sure I'm even going an inch because of this area here. Boy, that is going to be, if you go too far, you won't get this skirt on. So just a small seam in the back, and then fold this over and add your Velcro, making sure that your stiff side is away from your doll. So I have my Velcro sewn on. Proof's in the pudding. Pull it up over hips, ta-da! And Velcro. And there you go. Oh, that could be a little tighter there. And that is how you take a Blythe size skirt and make it for curvy Barbie. Boy, the way her curve is, that hits her a little high, but there it is. And I have to put these little ballet slippers back on because, well, she has those tiny flat feet. But here she is, ready for spring and summer with her new outfit. Thank you for watching the Dolls Rescue channel. If you're one of the crafters that I do send packages to, don't forget, if you don't send me a note in the mail, I will not know that you are still crafting and I will discontinue sending the packets to you. Leave a like, a comment, and subscribe.